This is Bishop Samuel Blakes, and you're listening to Real Talk with Mary J.
Happy Merry Monday, everybody. You've tuned in to Real Talk with Mary J. Real Talk with Mary J is a social outlet for a positive outcome. And listen, this is where the positive vibes flow every Monday morning at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. I am so excited to have my special guest sharing with me. We've been talking about Mental Health Awareness Month all month long, guys. We've been having so many powerful guests sharing on this platform, bringing you everything from social to spiritual. And this month, we've been talking and targeting on mental health. So sharing with me today is none other than Tynia Coleman. Listen, Tynia is a licensed practical counselor. She is an educator. She's a mom. She's a wife. She's a life strategist. She's a consultant. She's so much. But listen, I want to just share with you all of who Tynia Coleman is. And of course, when I bring her on, she's going to share a little further because of all of the wonderful things she do in the platform that she and her husband share. Tynia Coleman is a licensed professional counselor in Louisiana. And Tynia graduated with a bachelor's degree in family and child studies from McNeese State University in 2001. In 2018, as a full-time wife, mother, and educator, she graduated from Lamar State University with a master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. A skilled, passionate, and solution-oriented professional dedicated to providing clients with effective care through appropriate and relevant therapeutic strategies. Tynia spent time before earning her master's degree and entering the field of professional counseling as an educator. Every day was an adventure with her high school students. Her encounters in school setting often led to conversations with students, parents, and coworkers where Tynia's call to counseling was undeniable, often connecting with the stories of others through her personal history of childhood and family trauma. Tynia chose to make a career to change so that she could be more effective in her efforts to help. Tynia has a ministerial background, serving as a women's ministry leader. You all know that's my love language, using her gifts of teaching and inspiring to motivate change in others. Tynia's role in ministry also includes 15 years of ministerial counseling, serving women and coaching couples alongside the man of her dreams and husband of 19 years, Glenn Coleman. Tynia, along with her husband, Glenn, shares their lives with their two brilliant and beautiful daughters. The family has committed to be a lighthouse through serving other families through marriage and ministry. Tynia brings to the table a compassionate heart that sees the best in others and empowers you to become the best version of yourself. She loves cooking, hanging out with family and friends, and traveling. You all, let's welcome to the show on today, Tynia Coleman. Tanya, hello.
Everyone.
I am, listen, so excited to have you sharing with me on the show. You and Glenn was such a tremendous blessing on the last time you guys shared on the platform. And listen, I want to thank you both publicly for coming on the platform and being a part, and also being one of those endorsers on my book. Intrigue. Thank you for your writing as relates to intrigue and all of what you all just bring to the table, the kitchen table. Oh, it's so much. I love what you guys share as a couple. I just love the chemistry that you all share publicly. And I told you that's near and dear to my heart. Family and marriage has always been really near and dear to my heart, especially when it comes to women, women's ministry, and just the transparency that you guys share. You know, when I say chemistry, of course people would be thinking, yeah, they're supposed to have chemistry, they're married. But guess what? A lot of married couples do not share that publicly.
It's
You
true.
don't see it. And so you wonder, like, okay, what's going on behind the scene? They're saying one thing, but we don't see that publicly. But I'm so glad that you all share that life together and you share it for the world to see. So before we go on into our wonderful conversation, because we're talking about today, you talk about marriage matters, and our subject is mental health awareness. Family matters too, right?
Yeah.
So share with the people all of who you are, where you're from, and what you do.
Oh wow. Thank you first of all, Mary J, for having me on, for having Glenn and I on prior to this and giving us an opportunity to share our love and our passion. And for having me back on today. It's such I count it an honor and a privilege to be here with you and your audience. So thank you so much again for having me on. Yeah, so what do I do? I am a licensed professional counselor here in the state of Louisiana. I am operating out of the kitchen table counseling and coaching. It actually is founded in Lafayette, Louisiana, by our partners Mark and Melissa Dunwad. Beautiful people. And Glenn and I had the privilege of partnering with them to open this space up here in Lake Charles. So I am
Wonderful.
working with, through counseling practice, working with couples, working with individuals, men and women, some children. I usually kind of stick to 10 and above. But, you know, I have a secret. Don't tell my other clients this, but my absolute joy and passion, and I think most favorite group of people to work with besides couples is women. Because I get women's issues, right?
That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, so that's what I do. We are actually to I need to update that bio. When you read it, I was like, whoa, 19 years. Glenn and I are about to celebrate 21 years uh
Yeah.
in 10 days actually. Uh so I'm super excited about that. Just running after these kids. They keep us moving with all of their events and social schedule and all of that good stuff. So doing that, working to give back in ways to education. God has put some things on my heart to give back to the educational community, specifically teachers. I think through this pandemic, so much has come out of the pandemic, and people are trying to regather their mental health, or if there were struggles, they really manifested to the surface. And here in our area in Southwest Louisiana, we've had two major hurricanes, an ice storm, and all of these things in the last year.
Right.
So that people are really struggling, and our teachers in many areas are struggling, and our kids are struggling. And if everyone is having challenges as we are, I just feel the need to give back to that particular community, because I still have a great passion and heart for educators and for education. So I'm working on some things in that area, and making sure that I'm keeping my own mental and emotional health together.
Right, right. I was going to ask you about that bio too, because I said, wait, it's probably been a little bit longer than that, because I know since our last time having you guys on the show, I'm sure, it's added some years to that since then. And
Yes.
so all of what you do, Tynia and Glenn, your amazing husband, and as well as you just bring so much as a phenomenal woman to the table. I just, like I said, I love watching you guys. I love the balance there, and I want our audience to go check out. And I usually save this towards the end, but listen, guys, you have to go. I'm telling you, you're missing out on some great nuggets. You have to go and check out Marriage Matters with Glenn and Tynia Coleman. Give them your handle right now, because I know it's Marriage Matters and there's some numbers or something.
Right. It's 0526. So our anniversary is in 10 days. It's on the 26th of May. So our handle is at Marriage Matters 0526. So you can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, and also on YouTube.
Awesome. Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, guys. So you all go check out Glenn and Tynia on Marriage Matters, especially because marriage matters, right? Yeah. I've been listening, and I've been enjoying it. And you already know, from time to time, I have an opportunity to go over and just engage your platform. And especially when I'm bringing you on, I go catch up with what you're doing and what you're saying over there. That. So there has been some great nuggets in all of the information that you have shared thus far, and especially as it relates to women and mothers. It was just very touching to my heart. So Tynia, you have so many amazing things going on, so many wonderful things. First, I want you to tell the people what led you to where you are today. And secondly, how do you maintain the balance? Because it's a lot you're doing.
Yes. Honestly, when I think back to what led me here, in the bio, I kind of reference, I do, as everyone does, have my own trauma history. I have a beautiful, wonderful mother who gave birth to me very early in her life. She was 18, 19 when she gave birth to me. I was born with 2 holes in my heart. And as a young mother who didn't come from a whole lot, my dad didn't come from a whole lot. She had to figure out how to get me the medical care that I needed. And she tells this story of her walking downtown Gulfport, Mississippi, which is where we're from. And she sees this billboard that's advertising for the Army, and it's right next to the recruiter's office. So she goes in to ask questions. And as this young woman, 19-year-old young woman, she joins the military that day.
Wow.
She signs up to go into the military because in her conversation, they share with her all of the benefits. And so she knew that the surgery that I needed, it would be taken care of. And so I'm truly grateful to her to this day, because that was a huge sacrifice. So she joins the military, but I can't go with her. And she leaves me with one of her older brothers and his wife to take care of me while she's away in the military. That started, I was able to get the medical care that I needed, of course. God is amazing in that way. But it also led to a military lifestyle. My mom had some challenges in her life over the years. And so my life was very unstable. I tell people all of the time, I went to 13 different schools before I graduated from the 12th grade. So count that.
Yeah, right.
So there are a lot of challenges and struggles throughout that time. I am a survival of childhood sexual abuse at the hands of older children, and one adult male. And I say that now with no shame, with no hindrances, because it is It is what led me, my life experiences and the hardships and the things and obstacles that I've had to overcome is what led me to do the work that I'm doing today.
Wow. When I was listening to your bio and just knowing you from, we've never met in person,
Mhm.
and this is real talk, and this is a social outlet for a positive outcome, and we deal with everything from social to spiritual. And so I don't mind saying you try the spirit by the spirit
Come
right
on.
here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so just your spirit exuberates so much love and compassion. And I love sharing with my guests, and that's one of the questions that I ask every single guest that comes on, because I know there is passion behind your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And just the way that you carry out your platform and all of the things that God has already committed at your hands, I know that it had to be a story behind all of that, all of that passion that led you to where you are today. So,
Yes.
you're doing a great work. No wonder you're drawn to women, with your platform, because so am I.
Mm-hmm.
And I share my trauma, my childhood trauma as well, has been open to my platform right here on Real Talk Mary J. It's open throughout my ministry. It's
Mm-hmm.
open as it relates to Matters of the Heart, which is a platform that I share from occasionally on Monday nights.
Sure.
Because a lot of times God walks us through those things.
Yes.
And the thing that we have been affected by the most becomes our ministry. It becomes our drive, right?
Exactly.
Because for me, because I was married early on in life at age 16, because I was pregnant and I had an arranged marriage. Of course, it was my childhood sweetheart, and we thought we were so in love and we wanted to be married. But
Mhm.
when I realized, okay, I'm pregnant and now I have to be married, that was not the life that I had intended. That was not the picture that I painted for myself. And
Mhm.
so I went through a lot of trauma. I went through a lot of sexual abuse and a lot of physical and verbal abuse. And it really devastated me and shook my world and turned it upside down. And
Absolutely.
so when I began to tap in a little deeper to all of the brokenness inside, I knew that God had a platform waiting for me to help birth some women and cultivate their purpose and to perfect the best gifts that were in them, to allow them to live the best version of themselves, just as yourself. So, oh my God, I knew it was a reason why I was so excited about this day of sharing with you for Mental Health Awareness Month. So, Tynia, now from all of the trauma
Mhm.
and your experiences, you've birthed two platforms. I know you are um, coexisting along with your husband in
Mhm.
Marriage Matters. Tell me
Mhm.
a little bit about that platform
Yes.
and
Yes.
that work you're doing there.
Absolutely. So, Glenn and I, what, and I'll say this before I say that, what helped me and really begin that process, that journey of healing, of course, was my relationship with God, and my connection to the Word of God, and being connected to other women, older women, who helped me through that journey of healing, right? And so a lot of, well, the foundation of what Glenn and I do with Marriage Matters started in the ministry that we have been serving in for more than 20 something years, where we were a young married couple, who were in leadership and were asked to do some premarital counseling with some couples. And then it evolved into working with couples in general, within the ministry, to hosting classes in our homes. And then God led us to begin to develop a curriculum to work with couples. And we have these couples come into our home and sit at our dining room table. And, we do an 8-week premarital session with them. Or if they're married, we'll do some sessions with them in our home. And so when we talk about, being a lighthouse family, the Bible talks
Yes.
about opening the doors of your home to other
Yes.
people and being that light and being that example. And so for us, that's where that started, because coming from a background of, my mother was married multiple times, married and divorced multiple times. Glenn's parents were divorced after 21, 22 years of marriage. And we made a decision early in our marriage
Love
that
it.
we used to say this, Mary J. We used to say that divorce is not an option. But God showed us later on that, yes, it's always an option, right? And there are things in the word that we get permissions, to get out of a marriage. But
That's right.
marriage is optional to us. God
Yes.
gives choices. So it is an option. However, we chose to take it off of the table.
Yes.
And we have purpose in our hearts and desire to teach people how to maneuver not just marriage, but relationships as a whole in a healthy way. And when we learn how to maneuver relationships in a healthy way, in a godly way, in a way that is we communicate in a healthy way and openly, then we will have more success. And even for folks who are dating and think they want to be married, maybe we'll figure out that maybe we're the ones that shouldn't be married.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Marriage does matter. And that is an indication, Tynia, just your experiences that you share, because a lot of times we hear people say that I am a product, right, of my past.
Mhm.
And let me say this, I believe that we are, but
Mhm.
not to the extent where it's negative.
That
Not
is
all the time,
I
right?
completely agree.
Because I am a product of my past, because had it not been for my past, I don't think I'll be doing all of the things that I'm doing right now. I don't
Absolutely.
think that I have the passion for women. I don't
Mhm.
think that I have the passion for marriage, and women entrepreneurship and empowerment. And so as yourself, you just said that your mother was married multiple times. I was married 3 times. I came from brokenness. My parents are still together, though. They've been married for 60 plus years. They're still
Wow.
together.
Wow.
They're still married.
What a blessing.
And my sister got married very young as well. She's still married. I think like 40 years or so, maybe. But then there's me. I'm the sixth child of 8. I never thought that divorce was an option.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
but my pain told me otherwise, my
Come
trauma told me otherwise, and so I found myself going from one marriage to another
on.
relationship. And I found myself feeling to coming to a place of saying, you know what, I don't have to just stay stuck. I don't have to just stay in this space if it's not adding value to
Come
me,
on.
to
Yeah.
my well-being and my mental health. And
Mhm.
of course, my last marriage, I was married for almost 19 years, and it ended in trauma
Mhm.
again. So that, but with saying that, I'm still so passionate
Yeah.
about family. I'm still so passionate about relationships and about marriage itself, because that alone does not cause you to say, okay, I'm never getting married again, all marriages are bad, all men are no good, or this, that, and other, how we hear people say. But
Mhm.
you use something so beautiful, and I say this all the time, that our ugly past, so to speak,
Mhm.
sometimes brings about some of the most beautiful blossoms in
Yeah.
our lives. And
Yes.
so what you and Glenn are doing today with Marriage Matters, and yourself, and the platform that you have, and all of the wealth that you share with the kitchen table, I just love it. Bringing people into your home
Mhm.
to talk about marriage and relationships. So
Mhm.
let's talk to the people on today as it relates to that, because we're talking about mental health awareness,
Sure.
family matters, all of those triggers. How do you all maintain the blend and the balance in your relationship,
Mhm.
and how do you just keep it flowing the way that you have kept it flowing?
Okay, so this is real talk with Mary J, right?
Real talk. This is real talk. Yes.
Listen, it is work. It's work. And this is something we tell couples all the time, is that marriage, it can be hard, but it doesn't have to be hard. But what it is always going to be is work.
Yes.
If you're not willing to put in the work, put in the effort that it takes to make it successful, then it's not going to work, right? And of course, everyone has their past. And when we come together with someone else, all of our history comes together in that relationship. Even if we work through stuff, you still have thoughts and there are things
Right.
that trigger and things like that.
Right.
All of that comes together. But I truly believe that God uses marriage. He can use marriage, let me say that, as a healer. It is very much, I liken it to back in the day when we were in school and we had the transparency machines. Remember those?
Yeah.
The teacher would put up the questions and they would have blank lines in the middle of the sentences, right? And she would go through the lesson with the student and you're trying to figure out the answer. She works it through. And then, so once you've gone through everything and you've done your work at your desk, what does she do? She comes in with a second transparency sheet and she puts it on top. And that second transparency sheet has the answers. It's the answer key, and it fills in the blanks that were previously on the screen. For me,
That's good.
that is what a healthy marriage does. You have sometimes the wife has the blank spaces and the husband fills in the answers. Sometimes the husband has the blank spaces and the wife fills in the answers. I really believe that God can use marriage to help us heal, but that takes a lot of work.
Yes.
It
Yes.
takes vulnerability. It takes us communicating openly and honestly about everything all of the time, from a place of love. And
Right.
so over the years, we've often taught people about vulnerability and communication. We have to communicate openly and honestly about everything all the time. But we realize when working with some couples that they do this, but not from a place of love.
Mm-hmm.
It can be from a very harsh place, from a place that is causing more hurt than it is helping us to heal. So we have to teach people, okay, that's great and that's wonderful that you're doing that, but are you doing that from a place of love? What's your reason behind why you're sharing, what you're sharing, how you're sharing it? How you're communicating it. So for us, we add what we teach, what we preach is what we practice at home, you know? And I've had to learn how to where, raised by a Black mama, and we, we'll pop off and say some things sometimes real quick, and we're not thinking about communicating from a place of love. You need to understand what I'm saying to you right now. you know
Right.
I've had to learn that the way that I communicate to my husband, if it's not respectful, right? If it's
Right.
not from a place of love, then that can do some damage to his manhood, and I never want to do that.
Exactly.
And he's had to realize that, okay, she needs to understand all of these thoughts and these feelings that are going on in my brain that I'm not communicating out of my mouth, and she's wondering what's wrong with me. I need to open up. And
That's
so
good.
we've had to learn how to communicate with one another. We've had to, being married 21 years, we are not the same people that we were, in 2001. And so we've both grown and evolved, and then we're bringing these kids along with us, and they're bringing in, all of who they are and who they're becoming. And we've had to change our parenting style,
That's so good, Tynia.
there's so many things, but it's the conversations. Is that we are communicating, we are talking. When we're in disagreement, we stop, we slow down, and we figure out, okay, where can we agree on this? Okay, if your way isn't working, my way isn't working, we need to figure out a different way that works.
Right.
So that's what we do. It's a lot of communication. We still have disagreements. We still have those moments where it's just like, okay, I don't feel like you're hearing me. um And so we have to then become students of one another and ask a lot of questions, to make sure that we're clear on where the other person is coming from. So I tell people all the time, please don't make us goals, because that's what people say, is that, oh, y'all are goals. No, we're not goals. We
Yeah,
just do a lot of work.
that's right. That's right. And I believe, of course, it takes two,
Mm-hmm.
but it takes two that are walking together on one accord,
Absolutely.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so how can we walk together unless we agree?
Both agree.
And just taking time out, and I'm happy that you brought that to the forefront, because that's something that I think we as women, we need to hear that,
Mm-hmm.
right? We have our own way of thinking, we have our own mind, we're our own woman, right? All of that. And we come from some experiences and perhaps some trauma, some deep trauma. And the way that we communicate has a lot to say with all of what we've experienced as well. So
Mm-hmm.
just taking the time out to identify that and understand that. And as you said, look, I had a Black mama. you know, this is the way that we deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then just having that balance of
Mm-hmm.
having someone to connect with us and say, okay, listen, let's slow down and let's go back and revisit that, like why you felt that way, or why you said what you said, and how
Yes.
that made you feel in the moment. And that is such a wonderful thing. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing that I see that you share on your platform. I told you before, you're really kind of copacetic, um and I just love it. You'll look at Glenn sometime, you'll say, okay, all of that, right? Okay. Like if that's the way you're rolling with that, okay, we're gonna do that.
Do you, okay?
Yes, absolutely. So I just love the blend and the balance. I can't stress that enough, because that's, I believe, for me, that was one of the things that I felt that I was missing for a very long time, was the balance of it. I
Yeah.
was either all ministry and all church, and
Right.
and when I'm at home, I'm all family right here. But my children were affected because they did not see the mommy enough, the
Right.
mommy me.
Yes.
They saw the preacher pastor me, or the wife me,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't see enough mommy me. They didn't see the fun side of me,
Right.
right? It was always rules and regulations.
Mm-hmm.
I am a stickler for order.
Yes. Okay.
And then even today, they're grown men and women. I have grown. My youngest is 20, but it's just this stickler I have for order. So I've become a lot more fun now. Especially with, I have two grandbabies now, so I am a little less agitated when it comes to.
You have a new grace.
Yeah, a new grace. And I'm so glad you brought that up, Tanya, because you said something before about grace. What
Mm,
is it? I can't remember the catchy. Hold on, I think I might have it. There's
yes.
a catchy. Do you remember what I'm referring to?
Yes. Space and grace.
Faith and grace. Faith
Offer
and grace.
yourself and others space and grace. And when I say that, Mary J, it was only, I can't take any credit for it because Holy Spirit gave it to me. Um,
Mhm.
it is offering yourself the space to understand, to investigate, to process your own feelings about things and your emotions, right? Giving yourself the space to do that, as well as the grace, because when we take the space to do it, that means I'm taking the time to do it, right?
Right.
That means that I am not holding myself to this very rigid standard of being perfect. You talked about ministry and all of those things. Sometimes we feel like we have to be on this pedestal and it looks like our lives are perfect, you know.
Right.
Have to give ourselves the grace that
Right.
you never said you had to get it all right all the time.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, this is why Jesus went to the cross.
That's right.
You
And you
know,
know, Tanya, that was one of the things that I kept getting wrong. And I didn't realize it until later on in life. See, my 20-year-old and my 26-year-old, they got a lot more of Mary J.
mm-hmm,
My oldest got the preacher pastor version.
yeah, mm-hmm,
You know, and in her eyesight, I was perfect. I
mm-hmm,
was this angel that
mm-hmm,
did no wrong and didn't have weaknesses, because that was the person that I presented. That was
right,
the person that I thought I had to have her to see, so she won't error and make the same mistakes that I made along the way. But
mm-hmm,
I didn't realize how much that was being more of an effect than an additive. You know, I didn't know that it was adding negative
mm-hmm,
impact than it was positive impact, because
right,
this is what the enemy does. He would put that wedge and make you feel that, okay, she's Miss Goody Two Shoes,
mm-hmm,
she's Miss Perfect,
mm-hmm,
she can't relate to anything, she won't understand. And
yeah,
I found that with hearing from my kids and allowing them to speak out, and I found, wow, that was me,
mm-hmm,
Miss Self-Righteousness,
uh-huh,
right? um
yeah, good,
just full of self-righteousness, you
mm-hmm,
know, because I knew that I messed up along the way, and I was so busy trying to make sure that I get it right now. Especially, I have children, I gotta dot every I, cross every T. Not on my block, this is
right,
not happening to me, this won't be repeated, right? But here, you know, the Bible tells us also, that life and death is in the power of the tongue,
yes,
but
mm-hmm,
it's also the way that we think. And the thing
mm-hmm,
that we fear the most is the thing that will come upon us,
mm-hmm,
right? And
mm-hmm,
so the thing that I began to fear the most was the thing that I was repeating in my life. It was just so mind-blowing to me. So now that when I understand it better,
mm-hmm,
that I can operate from a different place, you know.
exactly, exactly.
So yes, will you share with some mothers perhaps that may be going through some of this trauma, that are dealing with some of these things, that, you know, a lot of times we see our children and ourselves,
Mm-hmm,
and who they see in us, they try their best not to be
right,
for most
right,
part,
yes,
right? Not to repeat.
mm-hmm,
Wow. Can you share with some of the parents
mm-hmm.
out there that may be dealing with maintaining a balance and allowing our children to be expressive and to help them find their way while supporting them along the way?
Absolutely, absolutely. I love that you said balance. One of the things that I think sometimes as parents, and this is whether you're in the church, or whether you're a believer or you're not, because I see it everywhere, is that we miss as parents that our children need to see that we are human, that
Right.
we are not perfect, that we don't get it all right. And why do they need to see that? Is because they need to see you to have the capability to correct your mistakes. They need
That's
to
good.
see you to have the capability to say to them, Mom apologizes. I spoke out of turn. I should not have spoken to you that way. Although what I said, I may have meant it, but it didn't come across in love. Maybe I misjudged you on this. But our children need to know that we're not above apologizing to them, and we are not above error, because they are watching.
Right.
And they see that we are able to apologize, and we are able to make a mistake and then turn around and correct the mistake, without any shame, without, we just pick up the pieces,
That's right.
that it's okay for mom to have a moment, that if I'm tearful today because there's something going on, that I'm working through, that is okay. It is simply a moment, you know. I love what you said about raising children in balance. The scripture talks about raising a child in the way that they should go.
That's
They
right.
will not depart from it. Well, when you read that in the Amplified Bible, I believe it talks about raising children in their bent, which is their gifting. And so
Mm,
we want to figure out, we have to discover. Remember, I talked about being a student of your spouse. We also have to be students of our children and study them and who they are and see what their giftings and their talents are. Give them opportunity to try different activities and support them in that manner. I have one child who started off with dancing, and she danced for 6 or 7 years, and she decided that she didn't want to dance anymore because she was more focused on her academics. She's tried tennis along the way, but she always goes back to that takes away too much of my time because she has a goal in mind for herself. I didn't give her this goal. This is
That's
what she
good.
wants to do. I have another one. She started in dance as well. She tried soccer, right? Now she's in theater and she loves it. She's found her people. And whatever it is that they want to do, we support them in those efforts. We're just the bumpers. We keep them from going off of the lane.
A
We keep
bumper. I love
in
that.
the gutters, right? We don't want them to go in the gutters, right? But you
Yes.
need to explore the different parts of yourself. And I'm here to make sure that we don't go too far left or too far right. You know,
Right.
to make mistakes in a safe space. I just had a conversation yesterday with Dr. Angela Abney on the podcast, and we were talking about mothering and motherhood. And that's one of the things that she said is that we need to give our children enough room, to make some mistakes where we're there to support and help them through those mistakes, and so that
Yeah.
when they leave us, they know how to maneuver, life outside of the comforts and safety of mom and dad.
That is so good. To be a bumper. I like that, Tanya. And to be a bumper and to allow them their space to maneuver. This is something that you've written. I found this on your platform. Give yourself and others space and grace to feel emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Reconcile those emotions. Take those emotions to God so that healing can take place.
Yes.
And
Yes.
to give yourself the space and grace to feel those emotions. And a lot of times we feel them, but we react to them too
Right.
abruptly, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't allow the time to set in to figure out why do we feel what we feel, where
Right.
are those emotions coming from, and to actually deal with those emotions. So I really, really like this quote that you put here as it relates to space and grace. I told you when you said it the first time, I loved it, the space and the grace
Yes.
that is needed.
That is all God, and that's Him speaking to me, talking to me through some of my own stuff, right?
Yes.
Sometimes, and this has been in my walk in the past as a believer and as a person of faith looked like that I didn't address my emotions because my emotions were going to take me to a place that I didn't need to go, and so
Correct.
I would overlook them and kind of push them aside, right? And I would get a scripture and I would quote a scripture during that time of anxiety, and so sometimes we do that and we're like, we're quoting scripture so fast and it's out of this space of anxiousness instead of saying, well, Lord, why am I feeling this way? Where is this
Yes.
from? What's going on? And allowing Him the time to speak back to you so that that's where we really renew the mind, right? Where that really happens is that we have to figure out, well, first of all, where did this come from?
Right.
Triggered this. And so when I figure that out, then I can work through the process of healing. And of course, I'm a huge advocate for therapy and for counseling, right? I think we have not given this space of mental health enough. We haven't given it enough spotlight in the church. And we have to do a better job at that, right? We feel like, well, we pray about it, we bring it to Jesus, we leave it at the altar and we're all good. Well, why do we have the same people coming back to this altar over and over again for the same issue? Right?
Yes.
Maybe
Absolutely.
they need something different. Now, that does work sometimes for some people, but I also believe I know that God called me to this space. And He would not have called me to this space had there not been need for me in this space. And it's
Right.
not just for people who are not church people. You know,
That's
it is for all of us, right? And so we have to understand that, and I have to give credit where credit is due. I learned this from um, I'm sorry, Dr. Anita. She says that prayer is a weapon, as the Bible says, but therapy is a strategy. It is a strategy
yes,
of healing.
yes,
So prayer
yes.
is a weapon, therapy is a strategy, right? Dr. Anita Phillips, that's who I was quoting. But we have to realize that they go together. They're not separate, right? Your getting counseling or therapy is not antagonistic against your faith. Not at all.
Absolutely.
That does not mean that you don't have faith and that you don't trust God. That
I'm,
means
I'm so glad you're sharing this,
Mhm,
Tanya, because for many years, and I talk about the old paradigms
mhm,
that we had, that old belief system that we were taught. If you're gonna, you just pray about it. You don't need to go to a doctor. You don't
mhm.
need to go to a therapist to tell them your problems. You cast your cares upon the Lord. You take
Yeah.
it there and you leave it there,
Mhm,
right? And so that's what we thought that faith really was.
mhm.
We didn't know that faith is coupled with the action of taking responsibility
Ooh,
for
that's a
our struggle.
mhm,
We have to take the responsibility and then add faith to that. Now, what's your part in this?
mhm,
And what is it that you see yourself doing? And
mhm.
then bring that before someone that can really hear you through.
Exactly.
Because for many years, I'm talking about myself. I didn't go to a doctor for absolutely nothing, just about, other
Mhm,
than to have my children,
mhm,
and now they're doing, home deliveries,
mhm,
home births. But I was proudful, and I was proudful and saying that I've never gone to a doctor. I didn't have a broken bone. I didn't have
mhm.
stitches. I never had this. I never had a cavity. I never, I was prideful in saying all of those things. And then guess what? I broke my foot.
Oh,
I broke my foot
oh no.
at 50 something. I'm almost 55 now. And I'm like, oh God, are you kidding me? All these
Mhm,
years in my life, I wait till now to break my foot. And
mhm.
guess what I had to do? I had to pray and I
Yeah.
had to go to the doctor.
Both. You had to do both, right?
Yes,
Mhm.
I had to pray and I had to go and get this thing x-rayed,
Yes. Mhm,
so that is so good because we were taught that.
mhm,
I remember during the course of my abusive marriage
mhm.
that I went through so much domestic abuse. And I remember hearing and echoing throughout my spirit my elders saying, stay and pray, and God will make a way. He's going to work it out. Just stay and pray. And
Mhm,
my God, I felt myself staying
mhm.
and in an abusive relationship that was not conducive for me, was not conducive for my child,
Right.
my mental health, or anything. And I'm staying and I'm praying. But it wasn't until I heard the word of the Lord that said that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit.
Mhm.
And so when we would not project certain things upon our temple, upon our body, that is not really beneficial to us, period.
Mhm.
That's just could somebody have said, that's wrong, get
Mhm.
out of there, get away from there and find safety. And until you really develop a safe space and work on you in the marriage, and then perhaps at some point, if it's healthy and
Mhm.
a conducive environment, then perhaps you can go back. Could somebody have just said that to me?
Right.
you
Mhm,
know and
mhm,
so these are some of the struggles that we have in the Black community,
mhm.
that we do not take those type of things as it relates to mental health
Right.
a priority. We don't make it a priority and put it in its proper place. So I am so glad that you are bringing that forth, that God does work everything out together for our good, but he uses us as
Yes.
vessels in the earth
Mhm.
to help bring about positive change in the lives of people. And
Exactly.
so Now it was through my devastation of going through my last marriage of almost 19 years that when I went through counseling during that course of that marriage, first time in my life ever.
Mhm.
So I was well over 50, first time ever seeing a therapist. And
Mhm.
I began to reflect
Yeah.
and revisit childhood trauma and
Mhm.
experiences that I had never dealt with,
Mhm.
never confronted.
Mhm.
I don't know what I did. I guess I tried to block them out of my mind,
Mhm.
or push them under the carpet, because I knew confronting those things and facing those things will expose some people, and I didn't want to do that either. And it I really didn't understand the weight of it
Yeah.
until I had to really go back and revisit it.
Yes.
I
Yes.
was blown away. I was like, wow,
Yes.
wow.
Yeah.
I dealt with all of that.
Mhm.
I carried all of that for all of these years.
Mhm. Mhm.
Amazing.
Yeah. You know.
Especially we as women, how we deal with so much, and we think that we have to be this superwoman,
Mhm.
right? That
Mhm.
handles and juggles and deal with every single thing and keep moving.
Yes. Yes. And then we show up in the world really agitated and angry. Yeah. It's
Wow.
those experiences, like you talked about your childhood trauma and then leading into relationships that were not healthy. It was those childhood experiences that kind of groomed you for those relationships and staying in them, you know? But we never really uncover the roots of that unless we go to therapy, unless we go to counseling.
Right. Right.
You
Right.
know, because people are trained to hear, to listen, to see, to ask the right questions, you know, to cause us to think. And we call it pulling back the onion, you know, that
Right.
therapy is like peeling an onion layer by layer, layer by layer. And if you take the time to pull and to peel back an onion, it's going to take you quite a while to get through all of those layers.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. And all of that, peeling back all of those layers, you will see a different version of yourself
absolutely.
throughout each each level of layer that is peeled back. You
Yeah.
know, one of the things that I think that had a lot to do with my experiences too, and I use myself as an example.
Yeah, I do.
Um,
Mhm,
yeah, is that's something that I found out early on, because like my first marriage, I was only there for a
mhm,
year and a half maybe. And I remember thinking that I could have, first of all, not been in this state
mhm,
had I not gotten married at such a young age.
mhm,
And so I resented my mom through the
mhm.
course of my marriage because of the devastation that I had gone through, because I was a minor when I got married at 16 years old
Wow.
because I was pregnant. So
Mhm,
I had that resentment built up, but I never expressed it. I never shared it with her. And I compressed it, and
mhm,
I did not even deal with it. And I think that for me and my mom had like the best relationship. We would talk, and we would go shopping. I'd take her out to eat. We would do all of the wonderful things that mother and daughters do. And I never dealt with that, you
mhm,
know? And
mhm,
then I realized that I would get triggered
mhm.
when she would give me advice on relationships or marriage. I would get triggered,
Mhm.
and I would think back to that trauma,
Yeah.
like, no, I'm not doing that, or I'm not listening to that, or I'm not, and even if it was good advice, even if
Right,
it was the right thing to do, I felt that there was no place, that
right.
no, I'm not, right? And
Mhm,
so that's one of the things that I recognized in my own experiences. Another was that my mom had been married, like I said, for 60 plus years or so. My sister maybe 40 plus. I'm not so certain exactly.
mhm,
Um, and then I found myself the second and feeling like, okay, I stayed and prayed. I'm not dealing with not doing what mom and dad did. I'm not doing what my sister did. I'm not doing what I see all these people doing, because I felt like in the first one, okay, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. Is this really all of what I have to deal with? Is
Right.
this really all of? So no, I'm not doing this, right? And so I found myself not tolerating anything. I'm out. At
Mhm.
the soon as I'm gone. As soon as you say something I don't know, I'm done, right? And so I'm escaping, so to speak.
That's that trauma response.
Exactly. It's either fight or flight. And
Mhm.
I decided I'm fleeing. I'm getting out of this, right? And now the third one, and I have labeled these. I've spoke at a conference, and I had to deal with all of these issues, and I call one Mr. Romeo, one Mr. Romance, and one Mr. Religion.
Okay.
And those are the areas in my life that they spoke to me during the season of time where I was, right? And so I stayed in the last one for almost 19 years for the sake of ministry, for the
Wow.
sake of the church.
Hmm.
Um, just keeping faith,
Yeah.
not wanting it to be disclosed, not wanting all of this to just come out, right?
Hmm.
And having to deal with that and put on the mask and walk,
Hmm.
with my head up as though everything was fine. And
Right.
I was struggling, and I was pouring into women. I
Hmm.
was helping women, I was building women's marriages and giving them sound advice and telling them, what to do, and God said. And
Hmm.
so when my time came, I was so ashamed.
Hmm.
I felt like, who am I?
Hmm.
God, how could this be? How did I not see? All of that
Right.
began to move in the forefront of me not knowing and not being aware. And so when I tell you trauma, anxiety, depression,
Hmm.
stress, all of that has an effect on your mental health, as well as those things that you have experienced. That's why I tell people all the time, you need an outlet. You need to speak it. You need to talk about it. You need to tell somebody. You can't just stay and pray. You
Right.
praying is good. Do pray. Do that. But
Yes.
take some responsibility.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, people don't understand that um, the body holds trauma. Trauma
Yes.
that we've experienced, rather against our bodies or our minds, or that we things that we've seen, it stays within the body because it affects you, right? And it finds a place in the body to kind of settle until you take that responsibility and you give yourself that space to actually process it. A lot of our physical ailments and illnesses are very much connected to emotional issues that we have that we've never dealt with. Um, one of the owner of the kitchen table, Mark Dunwah, he talked about how the things like cancer. I'll use that as an example. Usually, people who struggle with cancer or who have cancer are really a lot of the nicest people that you ever want to meet. They're
Hmm.
really nice and really kind people because a lot of times they don't let their frustrations out. And so they're holding it in their bodies, you know? So we have to speak up. We have to learn to advocate for ourselves. We have to learn to say what's on our hearts and on our minds. Yes, I always say try to do it from a place of love. Sometimes you can't do it from a place of love. Sometimes what needs to be said. If you're in an unhealthy situation, an unsafe situation, um you want to try to do it from a place of respect, right? But sometimes it just needs to happen. If the situation
Right.
is very volatile, you just need to let that happen and get yourself out of that unsafe situation, right? If it
Right.
is truly unsafe, Get yourself out of the situation first, and then deal with the magnitude of what's going on, right? But always advocate for yourself. If that means if you're in an abusive situation and you are not safe physically, mentally, or emotionally, then do what you need to do to get yourself out of that situation and deal with what comes afterwards where you have some support. But we do have to give ourselves permission to say to people, no, I don't like that. No, I don't agree with that. No, I'm not available.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And dealing with yourself, taking responsibility for yourself and going through feeling those emotions and just letting people know it's okay to have them, right?
Mhm.
A lot of times we try to medicate our pain. We deal with all sorts of substances to medicate it. I spoke on the other day as I was walking to talk about mental health awareness and just being transparent and sharing some of the things that I dealt with. And one for me was workaholic.
Mhm.
I worked through everything that I didn't feel anything. It
Yeah.
it didn't affect me. It didn't bother me because I was busy doing. I was busy
Yes.
working. But it
Yes.
wasn't until I got to that quiet place, Tanya, that I had to just sit still for a while and reflect, and then it all hit me. Like,
Mm.
wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I say and we do it, you're right. We cope with things through work, overworking, right? We cope with things through eating, overeating, uh,
Mhm.
eating things that we know that we shouldn't eat. We cope with, some people overdrink, use of, other substances, drugs and whatnot. Some people it's sex, some people it's going from one conference to the next conference so that we can stay on these mountain highs and never have to come down and deal with real life. Whatever it is, we find these ways to avoid. I think you used that word earlier. We find these ways to avoid dealing with the things that need to be dealt with. But it is very much like for a person who is very timid. I always think of a kid. When I was a kid and there were certain things that I wanted to do, and I knew that probably my mom was going to say no. And sometimes I'd stand outside her door for a while, just kind of like, ooh. And it's just like, okay, just get it over with. Start the process to address the issue because I'm telling you, your ladder will be greater. Once you get to the other side of it, there's so much peace. You become a completely different person. We are all on this
Absolutely.
journey of becoming. We are not going to be ultimately who God intended for us to be until we get there. But we have to stay on the journey of becoming and learning who we are. And learning who we are takes us also healing the hurt that's happened in our lives, whether it's caused by other people or caused by ourselves, right? It's still our responsibility to heal.
That's right. It is our responsibility to heal. And, and if we just understand that, and I tell people all the time that for many, many times we try to use God as our excuse. You
Listen,
know, we put it all on Him. He's going to do it, He's going to work it out.
right?
And I shared that because I had to get that understanding myself,
Mhm.
even during the course of my brokenness in my marriage. And I was asking God, like, God, why didn't you tell me this? Why didn't you tell me to leave? Why didn't you tell me to go? Why I have been praying, I have been fasting, I've been reading books, I've been going to conferences,
Mhm.
I've been trying to get the word in and out all the time, and like I've been visiting you to share a
Mhm.
word just to tell me to go. And he just said, but I was showing it to you the whole time. I was like, okay,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
you're right.
Mhm.
You're right. Because I'm a dreamer, and he would give me dreams over and over and over and over. And
Mhm.
I'm talking about
Yeah.
detailed information. And I would have these dreams, and then I would, confront it, and then second question and doubt myself and wondering if it's just me, you
Mhm.
know, that's demonic. The devil must have gave you those dreams. That's what I was told when I would confront about the dreams. Oh, that's the enemy planting these thoughts in your head. All of these things. And
Right,
it really had my mind racing to a point of wondering, like, okay, what's going on? Is it
right.
me? Is it really me thinking these thoughts? Is this not happening? But the whole time it was actually happening, and it had actually happened.
Yeah,
And the dreams that I was dreaming were real. And
yeah,
so God was showing me each time, but
yeah.
I was waiting for him to say something, then to see something. And
Mhm.
that's what we do
Yeah.
often. Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I would love for, people to understand that when we are in unhealthy relationships, that's typically what happens, that the other person, we use the term gaslighting
That's
in
right.
counseling,
Right.
they make you feel like or make you think that what you are seeing or what you're hearing is untrue, and you're crazy. Something's wrong with you. Like, that kind of thing. And so they never acknowledge that what is true is actually true, and they shut you down, and so then you begin to inwardly, now I'm questioning myself, and that just lessens as a person, it lessens who you are and builds more fear and anxiety. So that means that I stay in this longer than I need to because I'm unable to acknowledge what's really going on.
Right.
It's all being put on me. And so it's important that we recognize those things. You
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If I can,
Tanya, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to ask if I can share really quick a couple of things for people to look for in themselves.
Yes,
Um,
that's what I was getting ready to ask you to
okay.
share
Okay.
some advice, some of the things that you would like our audience to take away. What is it that you would have them to know and to do?
Sure. So this is something called the 5 parts of understanding life experiences, and I'm going to go through it really quickly. And so there's environmental, right? There is the environment that we live in, that we're in. Usually, major life events happen in the environment. It could be a loss of work, a loss of a loved one, living in isolation, being in an abusive environment. Those are all triggering situations. This pandemic that we have experienced is one of those environmental things, right? In the middle of the pandemic, we've seen racial injustice, we've seen natural disasters, and so now we're dealing with compounded trauma, right?
Mhm.
So those environmental triggers that happen within us, and this is any person. I don't care your race, your ethnicity, your religious background. These types of things affect all of us, right? Then we have to look at our behaviors. When you begin to lose interest in things that you once were deeply engaged in, you no longer engage in the things that brought you joy. The things that brought you excitement in your past, you begin to step away from those things and really become more inward, right? Um, those are behavioral changes that we have to pay attention to. And then paying attention to that thought life.
Yeah.
Those perspective changes when you think differently about yourself and the world around you, right?
Mhm.
And so now you see yourself in a different space, probably in a more negative space. You begin to question everyone and everything around you. Those your thoughts are beginning to go in a very downward, unhealthy spiral. Pay attention to those things. Then we get to the emotions, the moods, right? Your moods shift, they begin to change. You may go from being a happy person to being very angry, irritable, or even sad, and that can happen for brief times, that you can go in and out of that space. But pay attention, if that's not who you are, who you've been, why am I feeling this way all of a sudden? Or if it is who you are, who you've been, why have I felt this way for so long,
That's
right?
right.
And then finally, there's the physical part. when we begin to feel more exhausted and tired and we're just unmotivated. More often than not, you are less active than before, feeling tired and sluggish. Those are signs of anxiety and depression, right? A lot of times when we're anxious, we don't want to engage with the world. We don't want to engage with, people, places, and things that bring on anxiety or situations that bring on anxiety. When we are depressed, we don't want to engage with the rest of the world. So we have to watch out for all of those things, the physical, the behavioral, the emotional, the thoughts, and the environmental triggers in our life. And so paying attention to those things, and when you find those things shifting in a very negative way for yourself, it might be a good idea to reach out to a counselor or therapist that can help you process through what's going on in your life.
That is so, so good. Oh my God, that is a wealth of information, guys. Listen, you tune in to Real Talk with Mary J. We're right here every Monday morning at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Thank you for sharing with us, Tynia. Guys, I want you to go follow Tynia, go follow her platform. Go to her website, visit her website. It's right there scrolling on the screen. You'll be able to connect with her to get a lot more information and perhaps set up a counseling session that you can receive a wealth of information and to go forth in your life so you can live the best version of yourself. Thank you so much, Tynia, for bringing all of this awareness to us as it relates to mental health. We look forward to just engaging a little further, and I love again what you're doing with Marriage Matters. It's just so inspiring and encouraging, and I want those of us that are aspiring to be married or are in the marriage right now and dealing with some things to just go and check out Tynia's platform and glean from and get the information and engage with Tynia Coleman on today. Thank you, Tynia, for sharing with us on today.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on. Tynia, did you have a happy Merry Monday today?
Oh, I had a very happy Merry Monday today. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being a part.